How you going, guys? So look, I'll try and keep this brief, and look, apologies for the bad filming, I'm not a YouTuber, but essentially the first thing you're going to want to do is take off your electrical cables. That one's just to push down with your thumb and then pull off. These two up here, you push in these little buttons, you can see the buttons, push in the buttons on both sides and pull up, obviously on both of those. Now when you do that, fuel is going to come out of these lines. There's a little bit in there, there's not a huge amount, you're looking at about that, but what I did was I actually put this container and just sat it in there, and then after I pulled both of those out, I just drained them in there for about a minute or so before I wiped them with a bit of paper and then just left them up there before I took the rest of the filter out. Now, just make sure that when you're doing this and you start to, because this is the last step to take this off obviously, when you start, this is a 10mm, start twisting that one off obviously with your socket or however you're going to take it off. Just be aware that this 13mm bolt is actually welded to the housing, so don't put resistance on that thinking that you need to twist this. This is a part of the housing. Do not touch this bolt. All you need to do is get a spanner or socket on this one here. This is a 10mm, and it'll come off super easy just like that. Don't touch that bolt. The next thing you'll obviously do is disconnect this one. Now this particular cable was a bit of a pain to get off. You can see how it sits on the edge there like that. Do not rip out this fig tree clip holding it back in at the back. What you want to do, because that's sitting on there like this, is you want to put your thumb, oh sorry, I've got it around the wrong way. You want to put your thumb, put your thumb at the top of it and push it down and then pull up. So if it's sitting on there like that, whoop, thumb at the top, which is a bit annoying to get to because there's this metal little bracket here. So thumb at the top, push button down, and then that'll pop up and off. It is a pain. I ended up using a flathead screwdriver to actually push that button down to slide this off of that little bracket there. So obviously once you've taken all that off, this unit will come straight out. Now obviously it's full of fuel. Do not disconnect this down here. Fuel is just going to piss everywhere. So once you've actually successfully removed the unit, you then want to take it straight over to a bucket, and then it's just hand tight, that last little drain at the bottom, and then that's about the amount of fuel that's going to come out of there. So you'll empty that obviously into a bucket, not all over your engine bay. So I understand that this isn't ideal, but this should give you a pretty good idea as to how the actual filter comes apart. So you can see the metal bracket that's below it here. Now this was situated in the filter like this, obviously being the fuel filter itself. This is down really, really deep in the actual filter. Now to get it out, I just used a bent flathead and basically pried it on the edges and used these little tabs to slowly lever it up. And then eventually it obviously popped out. And it's pretty straightforward once you've got that far. It's just obviously putting in your new filter and putting it all back together. In your new fuel filter pack, you should have received some O-rings. One O-ring is obviously for this actual lid. You can see the O-ring there, so I'll be replacing that. And then the other O-ring is over there, as you can see, for the bottom cable connector. It'll be that black one there just above the red O-ring. So yeah, now I'm going to put all this back together and throw it back in the nav, and then we'll have to prime the fuel pump after that, so I'll walk you through that. Now guys, I know a guy, and this is the actual work instructions for removing the fuel filter on the Mercedes X-Class, which is slightly different to what I've done today, but this is the important bit that you need to be aware of, and that is, now that we've actually got our fuel filter replaced and it's all installed, make sure that these fuel lines are clipped. You'll hear a clip. You'll push them both down and they'll clip. Do not get that line confused with where this line's supposed to be. Green at the back, black at the front. Now, once we hit the ignition, do not turn the car on. You just want the ignition on. you need to leave the ignition switched on for at least 15 seconds so that the fuel is present at high pressure pump when the engine starts, to avoid damaging the high pressure pump. Do not turn the car on straight away. Hit on, let it prime for at least 15 seconds, leave it for 30, go and have a Coke. Come back, then turn the car on. You have to give time for the fuel pump to prime to put pressure back into these lines, or you could do some serious damage. Now I'm going to walk you all through this one more time to make sure that you get it right. You see how it's got on, so you want to go ACC, that's one click, and then on is click number 2. That's it. You now leave this for at least 15 seconds for the fuel pump through the lines, after which you should be fine to flick the car on. Alright, it's been about 2 minutes. I'm going to flick the car on, making sure obviously the handbrake's on and it's in park. So far so good. Now you're checking for fuel leaks. You want to look at the bottom, make sure that's on nice and tight. Not too tight obviously when you're doing it up, because it is just plastic. Same when you're jumping. That little metal bit is there to make sure that you don't crush the fuel filter when you're tightening it up. So you want it tight, but don't over tighten. Check your hoses for leaks. They can't go down any more than they already are. I'm only pushing down just to double check. But that all looks pretty good. We'll take it for a spin. We'll check it when we get out to make sure that there isn't fuel everywhere. And then that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.